It is Monday on the CXM experience. And as always, I'm here with Neha, my breath yogi. Hi, Neha.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good. How are you? It's been an interesting, tough week.
Yeah.
We did our last episode on what's going on in India. That continues to be challenging. But I know that you're in there working with the teams. That's great. I really want to applaud you for all that work. I know it's making a huge difference.
Yeah, no, it's been very heartwarming to see just how everyone's coming together and supporting each other. And you know what? It's a hard time, but human race is resilient. And I think we'll get through it together.
Yeah, well, at Sprinkler, we always say that we treat each other like family, and this is a really good example of where we're doing that. And as an ELT, we constantly ask ourselves: Are we doing this as a family? Are we doing this in the Sprinkler way? Challenging ourselves continuously about it. It's very interesting and very motivating moment to see how company values and company culture come into play when there's a crisis. So.
Yeah.
All right. So today, I think you had sort of made a request that I talk about something inspirational. So I have kind of a story that I think is kind of interesting,
That's
and I'll sort of share that with you. Sort of be my inspirational story for the day. And it's not one that I've actually talked about before, so this will be new. And I've never structured this story before, so we'll sort of see how this kind of comes out of my brain. It'll be It'll be interesting to see how it rolls out here. Okay, let's just everyone buckle up, because we don't really edit this show, so you never know what's going to happen. That's the first thing, and then we're going to go to an inspirational breath exercise with you for people that are looking for inspiration. Neha is going to help us think about breathing in a way to drive inspirational thinking, which I'm really looking forward to. Not that I necessarily need inspirational thinking. I feel very inspired every day. I'm motivated by the people I work with. Really, really having some incredible experiences with customers, incredibly motivating. And I'm surrounded by motivating people in my personal life. But you can always breathe better. I'm looking forward to doing this exercise with you today. So, you want to hear my story?
Yeah. And by the way, I thought of you this week because I'm working with some sales teams to kind of curate the QBR meeting. And I was like, you know what? We should think about it as an experience.
Yeah.
And I thought of you. I was like, we need to think of this meeting as an experience. So I was like, I should talk to Grad about that. But thank you for making us think of the experience.
Yeah, well, that is essentially my job, and it is a great job because every day I'm meeting new people who are focused on, obsessed with, and thinking about experience as the new brand, or realizing that their brand is essentially the sum of the experiences that the stakeholders have with it, and then really knowing that, really understanding the experience track that everyone is on is going to lead to the brand value. And I think one thing that people one thing I guess that people get fooled about is they have a brand that they want to project to the world. But that's just what they want to project. They're not really thinking about what people are saying about them. And the reality of a brand is what people say about you, not what you say about yourself. And being able to measure and understand what people say about you is critical to really understanding your brand. And what people say about you is essentially their reactions to the experience that you've given them. So the experience someone has with a brand is the reaction they have to that brand, is the brand itself. And that is very much an outside-in way of thinking about brands that's newer, because we have tended to think inside out as companies based on what we want, and we project that out and we broadcast it. This is a bit of the broadcast mentality, the broadcast mindset from the 20th century. And the 21st century, which is a conversational mindset, you have to remember that you are the sum of what people say about you. So how you behave is what causes people to say things about you, and that becomes your brand. It's a very interesting inside out perspective that I'm really enjoying landing this with people. People like it a lot.
Yeah, no, and it was amazing because I think in this virtual world, I think even if people are thinking about experience, it's hard, right? It's also an opportunity to be creative. Now, how do you deliver like a quarterly business review meeting, which is engaging and makes people feel fired up? Like, we can't just think about the agenda, we have to think about the experience, right? So
Right.
it's creative. So thank you for that. And maybe I'm gonna offline this with you, but I'm enjoying it. It's like quite a creative process. It's making me think outside the box.
Awesome. Awesome. Okay. Well, let me tell you my inspiring story. So my inspiring story is about my sister.
Okay.
I don't think I've ever talked about my sister on the podcast before.
You've
She
talked
doesn't.
about your brother.
My brother, yeah, okay. I talked about my brother. He's doing some pretty cool stuff, but my sister's really cool as well. I'm very blessed to have two amazing siblings, and I don't think she listens to this, so I'll just say whatever I want to say. It's actually great. Most of my family don't listen, so I can sort of at will say what I like. It's kind of fun, actually. So my sister's a very interesting person. So she lives in Toronto, in Canada. Toronto's the largest city in Canada, and for most of her career, she started her career in marketing and was in marketing for a long time, and then made a decision that she wanted to actually be closer to people. Didn't want to sit at a desk, and she felt like she was just withering away and not really having very much fun, and she wanted to be out there and sort of be part of it. And so she went into food service, and she became a bartender, which, it's an interesting move. I mean, a lot of people would be like, why would you go from an office job to be a bartender? But she loved it, and she did some incredible stuff, met a ton of really cool people, and by all counts and measures is an excellent bartender, and worked in a whole bunch of different establishments. And actually with the Firkin company, she went around the world opening Firkin bars in all sorts of different locations across North America and outside the country as well. And just had this, pretty cool lifestyle. And she became very, very good cook because she was around people cooking all the time and knows how to make things. And whenever I'm making something new for dinner, I'll call her up and I'll say, hey, listen, I'm doing like buttermilk chicken tonight. Like, tell me what spices I should be putting in it. And she's, of course, there's a little bit of translation because she's like a cook that just like, well, you put a little bit of this, you put a little bit of that. I don't know if you're feeling it like this way, if you're feeling it that way. Like, feeling it? He's like, come on, what are you talking about? I need a recipe here. Anyway, so she's very good, and we've had some really fun interactions, especially over the last year since COVID sort of came into being. Spent a lot more time talking to her and connecting with her. Of course, obviously COVID's had a huge impact on her career. And, like a massive impact, particularly in Toronto, where, I'm not going to get into the political issues, but the human issue of what's happening in Canada is pretty horrible as well. Canada's the worst in the developed world and is behind many of what you would consider less developed countries in terms of vaccinations. The way they're doing it is a mess. And countries in shambles when it comes to its response to COVID. And there's a whole bunch of good reasons for that, but and everyone's blaming everybody, but in kind of classic Canadian fashion. But the fact of the matter is that it's a disaster from a vaccination standpoint. So they're still in lockdown in Toronto and in many other places. And so basically COVID started, it was about just a bit over a year ago, right? Middle of March. Yep. Mm-hmm. And as soon as the lockdown happened, the owner of the restaurant where she was working, and they had been working really hard to make this restaurant successful. And they were at that point where she could just feel they were turning the corner. They were about to, people were coming back. They were getting regulars. They had like heavy Christmas bookings. Things were starting to really look up, and it was really getting to that momentum point where the restaurant starts to become a thing in the neighborhood. And the owner decided to not only shut down for the lockdown, but actually permanently close the restaurant. So she didn't just
Man.
temporarily lose her job. She lost her restaurant and obviously nowhere else to go. And suddenly she found herself completely without work and completely without income. Now, the thing about my sister, and one of the things I'm proudest of about her, she's incredibly independent and amazingly self-reliant. Sometimes maybe a bit too much, like she never wants anything ever. And it's really hard to buy presents for someone like that. But she's very independent and very sort of stands on her own 2 feet. But this is going to make it very difficult. Now, the unemployment insurance system in Canada did kick in. So people were able to get a little bit of money, but it's hardly what you'd want to live on. So what did she do? Right? And this is where I think this is an inspiring story. And many of her friends tell her that she's like the good story that came out of COVID. Like whenever they talk about something that potentially positive happened during COVID time, they'll talk about my sister Meredith. And what she did is she decided to change careers. And she's always had a green thumb, and we actually come from a very green thumb family. My grandmother famously could plant anything and have it grow. We once jokingly would say that she could put a broomstick in the ground and it would sprout. And I'm not kidding. She actually did put like a stick like that in the ground once as a stake, and it started blooming.
And it grew?
Like it was,
wow.
And it grew. Yeah. It was like, it's like bizarre. And my mom had that, although I will say my mom has more recently stopped gardening. And I scolded her the other day because my grandmother would not have stopped. So my mom needs to snap the garden gloves back on, get on the waders, and get back out there. But I'll save that for another podcast. So Meredith obviously comes from a line of people who know how to plant things and know how to grow things and like to be in the dirt and like to help things grow and like to make things. And my grandmother had a garden. She pickled. She put things away for the winter. She was like, she must have had a negative carbon footprint. There's no way that they had any kind of carbon footprint. They're a self-sustaining household. So Meredith has been planting and kind of putting things in her garden on her balcony. She has an apartment in Toronto, and she grows things and tomatoes and different sort of vegetables, and she has this sort of whole kind of cultivation that she's been doing. And she thought to herself, there's nothing happening in food service, and who knows if, when, or whenever it comes back. And she was right on this one. I think at the time, a lot of people thought month or two. Meredith was like, this could be a while. And that's kind of, I was kind of coaching her, this is going to take a while. And so she's like, I'm going to switch careers and I'm going to go into gardening.
Nice. That was smart.
Well, it's a pretty big shift.
Yeah.
Right? Like it's not like, no one goes, well, what would you do after, being a really world-class bartender for 20 years? Oh, I'm going to become a gardener. Like it doesn't, that's not a natural evolution, right?
Yeah.
Anyway, so I don't know how she did this, but she found a group of people who were mostly in the lawn maintenance business, but were looking to expand into the gardening business, pitched herself, and they bought it, and now she's got this flourishing gardening business attached to this lawn, and she does lawns, and she's doing gravel, and she's planting beds, and she's removing hydrangeas, and she's putting in plants, and she's setting up people's gardens, and now they've got a business now, and people who are moving want to have a better looking garden. She's like setting that kind of stuff up, but it's actually kind of amazing. She's done this entire career shift, and now she's taking courses at the university in Toronto called Ryerson, and she's taking courses on architect, the architecture of planting and flowers and horticulture and all that kind of stuff. So she's now studying in the field and really making quite a booming enterprise out of it. Isn't that great?
That's incredible. And I was thinking, as you were speaking, I was like, Grad, you need to help her start a YouTube channel or something. I want to consult with her. I think one of the industries that has done well is everybody has a plant now. Everybody has a house plant. And I want to start a garden. I want to start a kitchen garden, but I have no idea how to do it. And there's just so much out there. I think she needs to start something like like a YouTube channel or like a school, merited school for home gardens or something
That's a
like
great
that.
idea.
I
Home
think that would be
gardening school. Yeah.
like
Well,
I
she
think
does, and she does have some clever home hacks. You know, she's like she makes all her own meals, and she's great. As I said, she's a great cook, but she always has a little left over. And so what she'll do is she'll put that. She has a freezer set up in such a way that there's one flat area in the freezer, and then she'll take that food and stick it into a Ziploc bag and seal it. And she puts it in the freezer flat and flattens it out and waits until it freezes. And then now she can pull it out and she can turn it like a book. And she shelves it like a book. And so she's got like shelves of frozen dinners in a row.
That's interesting.
I know, a really clever idea. But anyway, she's great. Anyway, so that my inspiring story is like, man, I guess the way I might, and and Meredith's she's not 22. She's later in life. I'm not gonna sort of say how old she is specifically in case she does hear this. But she's not she's like she's been bartending for 20 years. It gives you an idea right there. But yeah, she's not like like just kind of out of school. And I think sometimes people get into a mindset where it's too late to change. It's too late to change anything. I'm stuck doing this. I don't know how to do anything else. People say that all the time. Don't know how to do anything else. And I always beg to differ. Human beings are very adaptable, pretty smart. And I just like to say, hey, anyone can change careers anytime. My sister did. And, I will say, I think the most important thing about it is she is loving what she's doing.
Yeah.
Loving it. She's she comes home, she's tired. I mean, she's physically tired at the end of these long days, but she's like sweating up a storm while she's out there, but she's loving what she's doing. She's got a real sense of accomplishment. It's a great COVID job because you're not near anybody. No human beings are near you. It's one of the few industries that's not locked down. You don't have to take a break. So they've been able to work continuously the whole time. Garden centers are still open. So it's been a brilliant move. So anyways, that's my inspiring story for the day. So it's never too late to do what you want. And no one ever give up on a dream. And sometimes when an opportunity presents itself, take advantage of it.
Yeah. And I mean, just the fact that she took the risk, right?
Yeah.
She took the risk. And I think that in itself is like, just take the risk. What can happen? Anyway, like she didn't have a lot to lose. So, and it turned out to be the best thing. So I'm so happy for her. That's very, very inspiring. It is. I do want to have a consult with her if she can help me here. I have never been able to keep an orchid alive. Like, can you believe that?
Really?
An orchid.
Orchids are tough.
No, but they're really low maintenance.
Orchid's not a low bar. Orchid's a high bar. They need special food. Oh yeah, orchids are super hard. They have special
I don't know
food,
that.
special light, special water. They need the right amount of water. Orchids are really hard. However, when an orchid loses all its flowers, it's actually not dead. They do come back.
Oh God! Like I thought they were low maintenance.
Sometimes people throw orchids out before they're actually dead. I mean, just imagine the orchids going, "I'm not dead yet," but yeah, they don't have their flowers. But you haven't necessarily killed it. But orchids are super hard, so don't be too hard on yourself. Yeah.
That makes me feel better because I was like, God, like I always thought orchids were low maintenance. You only water them once in 2-3 weeks, and you give them like in a shade. And I was like, okay, great, Neha. So now I have snake plant. Because it needs nothing. Like it's really, really low maintenance.
Yeah, well, succulents are easy, right? So get cacti or get like a bonsai tree. Those are easy.
Yeah, I like snake plant because it also purifies the air. So now it's like snake plants. But hey, great story. Thank you for that. So it's never too late to adapt.
Never too late. Never too late to
no. Thanks for
make
sharing.
a second impression. So, all right. Yeah. So let's do a breathing exercise. I'm looking forward to our inspirational breathing exercise today.
So we're going to do something called the alternate nostril breath. Have you ever tried that?
No.
So it's very simple, alternate nostril breath. So we're going to alternate between breathing from one nostril at a time.
Okay.
And
so it's a very appropriate name.
It's a very appropriate name, yes. And it's actually, there's like, in the Vedic philosophy, there's a whole subject of just breathe, like on nostrils. Like there's so much to study on just nostrils. Really? But what it does is it balances the left and the right brain activity.
Interesting. Okay.
So it's going to help you, if you're too left, if you're too like logical thinking, it's going to help you call in that creative side of you. If you're too creative, then it's going to help you balance it out and use that network, which is going to help you be a little bit more logical. So,
Awesome. Okay.
so it's very simple. Let's get started. And this is a breath that has no contraindications. So everybody can do it anytime. So
Okay.
let's sit up nice and tall and place your left palm on your left thigh, open to the ceiling. And bring your right index finger and middle finger, place it in between your eyebrows. Take a normal deep breath in through both the nostrils. Close the right nostril with the thumb, breathe out through the left. And keeping the right closed, breathe in through the left. Close the left with the ring finger, breathe out through the right. Keeping the left closed, breathe in through the right. Close the right, out through the left. In through the left. Close the left, breathe out through the right. In through the right. Close the right, out through the left. And continue breathing out and in from one nostril at a time. And make your breath long, gentle, and smooth. And make it more effortless. Relax the body. Keep your full focus on the breath. If the mind is wavering, bring it back to the breath. In through the left. Close the left, out through the right. In through the right. Close the right, out through the left. In on the left. Close the left, out on the right. In on the right. Close the right, out on the left. And continue a few more rounds on your own. Make the breath effortless, gentle, and long. And the next time you breathe out of the left nostril, you can relax the right palm, keep your eyes closed. Place your palm on your thigh, open to the sky. And just for a moment, bring your attention inwards. And notice the state of your mind. Notice how you're feeling inside. Take a normal deep breath in. And slow breath out. Relax. And breathe in again. Bring your palms together. Rub them. Generate some heat. Place them on your eyes. Let the eyes absorb the heat. And when you're ready, you can open the eyes.
Wow, that was awesome.
Yeah, it's a very
I haven't done
calming.
that before. That was crazy.
It was a really calming breath.
Very calming.
Yeah.
Holy smokes. I love that. It's interesting. One of the problems with breathing is sometimes we hyperventilate. And then that triggers panic and anxiety, physiology reactions, and then off we go, right? But that closing one, opening one, closing one, it's so deliberate, and it feels like you're not really able to like over oxygenate. So it's a really neat way of breathing deeply, but not getting yourself triggered.
So,
It's really cool.
yeah, no, it's very effective.
Well, Neha, any last thoughts for today?
Yeah, no, I just want to leave everyone with this thought that, it's just a challenging time for humanity in general, right? Like, even if you're not in India and in an acute crisis, it's just hard to see fellow humans suffer, or it's like, hey, I've been in an year of a lockdown, like, how's life going to look like? And just like going back to the story you shared, I believe that every person is resilient and every person can adapt, and we've adapted, and that's how we were here. So if you're there and if you're feeling a little low or not sure what to do, just take the risk. Just take that risk and see what happens. I'm sure, like, I feel like there's no harm in taking the risk, and more often than not, you'll be positively surprised by the outcome. So I want to leave people feeling a little inspired, because, it can be a little not so pleasant outside these days. So you can do
I
it.
love that. I love that. Well, thank you. That was a great Monday episode. I enjoyed that tremendously, and I'll see you next week.
See you next week.
All right, everybody.
Thank you for joining us.
This is Neha, the Breath Yogi, and me, Grad Khan, for the CXM Experience, and I'll see you next time.